All right, buckle up, Buttercup. We're going deep into the UK Parliament, a recent Q&A session to be exact.
Yeah, it's a total shit show of jargon and policy, but we'll break it down for you.
Think of it as a public service announcement.
Like translating ancient Sumerian tablets, but with more whining about the NHS.
So picture this December 2024 UK Parliament. Christmas is looming, and the PM is sweating bullets under the interrogation lamp.
It's like a political roast, but with less laughter and more existential dread.
First up, let's talk about these waspy women. They've been raising hell for years over pension changes.
Basically, they got screwed over, expecting a certain pension at a certain age, and then bam, rules changed, leaving them high and dry.
So what's the government's excuse for this dumpster fire?
The official story is the pension system was going belly up, needed changes to stay afloat.
Sounds like a load of bollocks to me.
Well, the ombudsman kind of agrees. They found the government botched the communication about the changes to these women.
Talk about rubbing salt in the wound. So basically, the government fucked up, didn't own up to it, and now these women are left holding the bag.
It does raise some interesting questions, though. On one hand, you've got these women who got a raw deal.
And on the other hand,
Where do you find the cash for a massive payout in an economy that's already on its knees? It's a sticky wicket.
yeah, a real head scratcher. But let's move on to another hot potato: social care. This is where things get really heavy.
Multiple MPs brought up some gut-wrenching cases. A kid bounced around 9 different foster homes, and a young girl who died because of alleged abuse.
Jesus, that's heavy stuff. What's the government doing about it besides offering the usual empty promises?
They say they're chucking more money at programs to support vulnerable kids and families.
God.
Even with more funding, the system's clearly overloaded. You've got an aging population, complex needs, and a workforce that's burnt out and underpaid.
Yeah, throwing money at a problem doesn't magically fix everything. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken leg.
Exactly. They need to completely rethink how social care works and who foots the bill, but
Yeah.
that's a whole other can of worms.
Okay, enough doom and gloom for now. Let's lighten things up a bit because this parliamentary session wasn't all doom and gloom.
Oh, yeah.
Some seriously weird shit came up, like deepfake porn and blasphemy laws.
It's like someone threw a bunch of random anxieties into a blender and hit puree.
One MP suggested taking cues from Monty Python's Life of Brian when it comes to blasphemy laws. Basically, loosen the fuck up.
You're kidding. Right, they're quoting Monty Python in Parliament.
I shit you not. It really shows that clash between old school values and modern day worries.
So on one hand, you've got these ancient laws about offending religious folks.
And on the other hand,
You've got deepfake porn, which is a whole new level of fucked up.
it's a sign of the times. I guess the world's gone completely tits up.
Yeah, no kidding. So what's the government's take on all this weirdness?
They're all gung-ho about banning deepfakes, which is a start, I guess.
Yeah. But good luck policing that shit.
As for blasphemy laws, they're not keen on bringing those back, thankfully.
Yeah, it seems like they get that free speech, even if it's offensive, is kind of important in a democracy.
Okay, so we've covered pensions, social care, and a healthy dose of the absurd. But what about the everyday struggles of regular folks? Did any of that make it into this parliamentary session?
Absolutely. Beyond all the political posturing, there were glimpses into the lives of ordinary people and the shit they deal with.
Like what?
One MP talked about a blind constituent who's constantly dodging parked cars that force her to walk in the road.
That's just common sense, right?
Yeah.
Don't park like a wanker and put people's lives at risk.
Another MP brought up the issue of constituents struggling to find work because of language barriers.
You mean they're getting shafted because they don't speak the Queen's English?
Pretty much they're facing a bureaucratic nightmare just to prove their job applications and interviews are legit.
So the system's rigged against them from the start.
Yeah.
That's fucked up.
Then there was the story of a dad whose neighborhood was being terrorized by off-road bikers, making it unsafe for his kid to even play outside.
What a bunch of tots. What are the cops doing about it?
It's not always that simple resources are stretched thin, and sometimes those quality of life issues get pushed aside.
It's a reminder that all this political talk actually affects people's lives. But let's lighten the mood again. This is getting depressing. You mentioned some economic whiplash earlier. What's that all about?
Well, we go from the PM bragging about a deal for the Hitachi factory, all smiles and promises of new jobs,
To a rather somber discussion about funding for hospices, talk about a mood swing.
It shows how the government's always trying to balance economic growth with taking care of people. It's like they're trying to ride 2 horses galloping in opposite directions.
And let's not forget the lighthearted banter about Christmas carols. There's a nice touch. So the PM and the leader of the Liberal Democrats are having a Christmas Carol sing-off. Who knew?
It was a brief moment of levity in an otherwise intense and often emotionally charged session. It's a reminder that even politicians are human and capable of enjoying the holiday season. Right back at you. Let's dig deeper into those transcripts and see what other nuggets of real life shit we can find.
Yeah, those personal stories really hammered home that politics ain't just some abstract game for these wankers. It's real people's lives on the line.
One that really got me was the whole young carers thing.
Young carers.
Kids, some as young as 8 or 9, looking after a sick family member.
Bloody hell, that's messed up.
It's like they're being robbed of their childhood. And while the government mentioned some help for them, it felt like a load of bollocks.
More needs to be done. These kids can't just fall through the cracks.
Another thing that stuck with me was the whole domestic abuse thing, especially during the holidays.
Yeah, Christmas ain't all sunshine and roses for everyone, is it?
One MP said domestic abuse cases can jump by 20% during Christmas.
That's fucked up.
It is while we're all stuffing our faces, some people are living a nightmare.
Right. Let's not forget that support's out there, hotlines, shelters people who can help. Now onto a topic that always gets people riled up, immigration.
Ah, yes, the never-ending saga of who gets in, who gets kicked out, and who gets to call Blighty home.
And this section was no different. What were the main talking points?
No surprises here, the economic impact of immigration took center stage.
So the classic argument of immigrants stealing jobs versus immigrants doing the jobs nobody else wants.
Exactly. There was a lot of talk about filling skills gaps, attracting talent from overseas, making sure businesses have the workers they need.
But I'm guessing there were concerns about the strain on public services like housing and healthcare.
Of course, the age-old question of how to manage immigration so it benefits the economy without overwhelming essential services. It's a tightrope walk.
And it's a debate that's going nowhere fast. Now, let's talk about something close to my heart. Education, battling ignorance, all that jazz.
This time it was all about equal opportunities for all students, no matter their background.
Sounds great in theory, but we both know it's not that simple.
One MP pointed out that kids from working-class families are less likely to get good grades, which obviously limits their opportunities later in life.
It's just bollocks, isn't it? The system seems designed to keep some people down.
There was some talk about increasing funding for schools in poor areas, giving extra support to struggling students, addressing the root causes of inequality, like poverty and lack of resources.
All long-term solutions, though, right?
Exactly. It's a complex issue, needs a serious commitment from the government and society as a whole. And let's not forget the teachers. They're the ones in the trenches every day.
They deserve a medal, those poor sods. Speaking of things that deserve a medal, those blasphemy laws popped up again.
Apparently, one MP suggested the UK follow Monty Python's Life of Brian when it comes to blasphemy laws.
You're taking the piss, right? Monty Python in Parliament.
It's like they're finally realizing these outdated laws are a bit ridiculous in today's world.
I mean, we're worried about jokes about religion while deepfake porn is running wild. Talk about mixed up priorities.
The government at least says they're not bringing those laws back.
Good call.
Yeah.
Now, what about climate change? Did that make an appearance?
It wasn't the main event, but it popped up in talks about energy and the economy, the usual spiel about renewable energy cutting emissions and all that.
All talk, no action as usual.
They've made some progress, but it's the global problem, needs everyone on board, and that's not happening.
We're all fiddling while Rome burns, right? Okay, enough of that. Let's talk about the NHS. The UK's beloved, yet perpetually screwed healthcare system.
The NHS always on life support. What else is new?
What were the main gripes this time?
Same old long waiting lists, staff shortages, not enough money. The government talked about increased investment, but it's a drop in the ocean.
Throwing money at it won't fix the underlying problems.
It needs a major overhaul, addressing things like the aging population, the increasing demand, and the lack of preventative care.
A mess. And speaking of messes, what about animal welfare? Did that get a look in?
Not a major focus, but it came up when they talked about hunting farming practices. The illegal wildlife trade, the usual suspects.
So what were the big issues?
Snares were mentioned. Those barbaric traps.
They're still legal. Jesus.
Someone also brought up the horrific conditions in factory farms, animals treated like shit, crammed into tiny spaces.
Makes you want to go vegan, right? Anyway, moving on to the shadowy world of spies and secrets. Anything juicy there?
Not much. Most of that's hush-hush, but it's clear the UK's got its hands full. Terrorism, cyber attacks, meddling in elections, the whole 9 yards.
It's like a never-ending battle, right?
It is a constant game of whack-a-mole, but with much higher stakes. Okay, enough cloak and dagger stuff. Let's talk about the economy. How's the old engine running?
Is it Purring like a kitten or sputtering like an old banger?
According to the government, it's doing great, low unemployment, steady growth, all that.
But I'm sure the opposition had something to say about that.
They did. They pointed out that many people are struggling. Wages or stagnant prices are going through the roof. It's the same old story. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer.
The haves and the have-nots. A tale as old as time. Now let's talk about the justice system. How are we doing with fairness and all that?
They talked about crime punishment, rehabilitation, legal representation, you name it.
What were the main points of contention?
Someone was worried about reoffending rates, saying we need to do more to help prisoners get back on their feet.
Makes sense. You don't want them going straight back to a life of crime.
The importance of legal aid came up, making sure everyone has access to legal help, even if they're skinned.
Everyone deserves a fair shot, not just the rich and powerful. What else stood out?
The mental health discussion was pretty interesting. It's a massive problem, but people don't talk about it enough.
Yeah, it's often brushed under the carpet. What were the key takeaways there?
One brave MP actually shared their own struggles with mental health, showing it's okay to talk about it. Another one stressed the need for more funding for mental health services, saying early help can prevent bigger problems later on.
So basically, don't suffer in silence. Reach out for help. Now let's talk about a basic human need. Housing, always a hot topic.
They talked about affordability, homelessness, the government's role in providing decent housing options, the drill.
So what's the state of play in the UK housing market these days?
It's a bloody mess. One MP talked about young people trying to buy a house facing ridiculous prices and no affordable options. Another one was worried about homelessness, saying we need to do more to stop people ending up on the streets.
It's a disgrace that in a country as rich as the UK, people can't afford a roof over their heads. What's the solution?
We need to start by treating housing as a right, not a luxury. Build more affordable homes, regulate the rental market, support those who are struggling.
Well said. Now let's move on to something a bit cheerier. Arts and culture. Did that get any love?
It wasn't front and center, but they did talk about funding for the arts, the importance of arts education, and protecting cultural heritage.
So are the arts thriving or barely surviving?
One MP argued that investing in the arts is vital for creativity, critical thinking, and a sense of community.
I'm all for supporting the arts.
Yeah.
They make life a bit less shit, don't they? Now let's talk about electoral reform. How's our democracy holding up?
Well, they discussed the voting system campaign, financed the role of technology in elections, the whole shebang.
Sounds like a recipe for disaster. What were the main points of contention?
One MP wanted to ditch the current first-past-the-post voting system, arguing for something more proportional that reflects the diversity of opinions in the UK.
Makes sense. The current system seems rigged in favor of the big two.
They also talked about tightening the rules on campaign finance, saying money shouldn't be the deciding factor in elections.
Here, time to get big money out of politics. Now let's get personal and talk about personal finance. Did that make an appearance?
It did. They discussed financial literacy, managing debt, and the government's role in promoting financial well-being.
So how are the Brits doing with their personal finances?
One MP stressed the importance of teaching young people about money, saying financial literacy is crucial for making good decisions and avoiding debt traps.
Can't argue with that. We need to give young people the tools to manage their money properly. What else came up?
There were concerns about rising debt levels, saying more needs to be done to help those who are struggling.
That can be a real bastard, can't it?
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to digital rights. Our freedoms and privacy in the online world. How's that looking?
They talked about data protection, online privacy, the power of tech companies shaping the digital landscape.
So is the UK a digital haven or a digital hellhole?
Somewhere in between, one MP was worried about the growing influence of tech giants, saying we need to rein them in and protect our data. Another one stressed the importance of net neutrality, making sure everyone has equal access online.
Important issues, no doubt. Now let's talk about family life. How's that faring in? Good old Blighty.
They discussed childcare, parental leave, work-life balance, the government's role in supporting families.
So is the UK a good place to raise a family or a nightmare?
Like most things, it's a mixed bag. One MP talked about the struggles of working parents juggling work and family arguing for more flexible working and affordable childcare.
Not easy trying to do it all.
Another MP was worried about the rising cost of raising a family, saying families need more financial support.
It's not cheap to raise kids these days, that's for sure. Now let's zoom in on community development. What's the state of play there?
They talked about funding for local councils' infrastructure investment, the role of community groups in building social cohesion.
Sounds like a lot to cover. What were the key takeaways?
One MP highlighted the problems facing rural communities, saying they need more investment in things like transport and services to bring them back to life.
Rural communities often get left behind, don't they?
Another MP emphasized the importance of supporting local groups, saying they're vital for providing services and bringing people together.
They're the glue that holds communities together, right? Okay, let's talk about something fundamental: health and well-being. How are we doing on that front?
They discussed healthcare, public health initiatives, the government's role in encouraging healthy lifestyles.
So are we a nation of healthy bastards or a nation of walking heart attacks?
A bit of both, really. One MP stressed the importance of preventative care, saying, investing in early intervention and health education can save money and lives.
An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, as they say.
Another MP said we need to address the social factors that affect health, like poverty housing, access to healthy food. It's not just about treating illnesses, it's about creating the conditions for people to live healthy lives.
Makes sense. Now let's move on to a topic that always sparks debate: the armed forces.
The brave souls who defend our nation. They talked about defense spending, overseas operations, looking after veterans.
So are we a gung-ho military nation or a bunch of peace-loving hippies?
It's a balancing act. One MP argued for more money for the military, saying we need to be strong to deter threats and protect our interests.
Strength through firepower, the classic argument.
Another MP was worried about the human cost of war, saying we need to do more for veterans and focus on diplomacy and peace building.
It's a tough one, isn't it? You want to be prepared, but you don't want to go starting wars willy-nilly.
Okay.
Enough serious talk. Let's talk about something more fun: travel and tourism.
Yes, exploring the world and all that. They talked about the economic benefits of tourism, the impact on local communities, the need for sustainable tourism.
So are we a nation of welcoming hosts, or are we overrun by tourists?
It's a balancing act, as always. One MP said tourism is crucial for the economy, creating jobs, boosting businesses, and all that.
Can't argue with that.
Another MP was worried about the downsides of too much tourism, saying we need to protect the environment and local cultures.
Yeah, you don't want to kill the goose that lays the golden egg, right?
Yeah.
Now let's talk about fashion and design. Does that get a look in?
It did. They talked about the creative industries, the economic impact of fashion, and the need for sustainability.
So are we a nation of trendsetters or fashion victims?
One MP said the fashion industry is important for the economy, creating jobs and contributing to our cultural identity.
Makes sense. We Brits are known for our style or lack thereof.
Another MP was worried about the environmental impact of fast fashion, calling for more sustainable and ethical practices.
Yeah, we need to make sure our clothes don't cost the earth. Now let's get spiritual and talk about religion and spirituality.
They talked about religious freedom, interfaith dialogue, the role of religion in public life.
So are we a nation of God-fearing folks or a bunch of heathens?
It's complicated. One MP said it's vital to protect religious freedom so everyone can practice their faith without fear.
And to that.
Another MP stressed the importance of different faiths talking to each other, promoting understanding and respect.
Building bridges, not walls, right? Okay, let's tackle a thorny issue: citizenship and immigration.
They discussed border control immigration policy, integrating immigrants into society.
So are we a welcoming nation or are we slamming the door shut?
One MP called for tighter border controls, saying we need to protect national security and manage immigration.
Keep those pesky foreigners out, eh?
Another MP highlighted the contributions immigrants make to our economy and society, arguing for more welcoming policies.
A tough one, finding the right balance, right? Okay, let's lighten things up again. What about sports and recreation?
They talked about funding for sports, the role of sports in health and well-being, making sure everyone has access to sports facilities.
So are we a nation of sporty bastards or couch potatoes?
One MP said sports are vital for fighting obesity and keeping people active, calling for more investment in school sports and community facilities.
Get those kids off the PlayStation and onto the pitch.
Another MP highlighted the social benefits of sports, teamwork, leadership, community spirit, all that good stuff.
All right, then on to science and technology. How's that looking?
They talked about research funding technological advancements, the ethical side of new technologies.
So are we leading away or falling behind?
One MP said we need to invest in scientific research because it leads to breakthroughs in medicine, energy, and other fields that benefit everyone.
Can't argue with that. Science is the future.
Another MP was worried about the potential downsides of artificial intelligence, saying we need ethical guidelines to make sure it's used for good, not evil.
Don't want robots taking over the world just yet. Now let's talk foreign policy. How are we doing on the global stage?
They discussed trade deals, military alliances, humanitarian aid.
So are we a global powerhouse or a shrinking violet?
One MP wanted a more assertive foreign policy, saying we need to flex our muscles and defend our interests.
Rule Britannia and all that.
Another MP preferred a more diplomatic approach, saying we should focus on building relationships and resolving conflicts peacefully.
A bit of a balancing act, isn't it? Now let's get down to earth and talk about food and agriculture.
They discussed farming practices, food safety, the impact of climate change on agriculture.
So are we a nation of discerning foodies, or do we just shove anything down our throats?
One MP stressed the importance of supporting local farmers, saying it strengthens communities and reduces environmental impact.
Buy local, eat local.
Another MP was worried about pesticides and genetically modified food, calling for more sustainable and organic farming.
We are what we eat, right? Okay, let's lighten the mood again. Music and entertainment. How's that scene looking?
They talked about funding for the arts, music education, the impact of technology on the music industry.
So are we a nation of musical geniuses or tone-deaf twats?
One MP said music education is crucial for creativity, self-expression, and brain development.
Music makes the people come together.
Another MP was worried about the decline of live music venues, calling for support to save these cultural hubs.
We need more live music, not more DJs.
Oh.
Okay, transportation time. How are we getting around?
They talked about funding for public transport, road safety, developing sustainable transport.
So are we a nation of petrol heads or public transport enthusiasts?
One MP argued for more investment in public transport, saying it reduces traffic, cleans up the air, and provides affordable travel.
Less cars, more trains and buses.
Another MP stressed the importance of road safety, calling for stricter traffic laws and better roads.
Keep those roads safe for everyone, right? Now let's talk urban planning. How are our cities doing?
They discussed housing affordability, green spaces, the impact of development on communities.
So are we a nation of concrete jungles or leafy suburbs?
One MP called for more mixed-income housing to promote diversity and prevent poverty being concentrated in certain areas.
A good mix of rich and poor, eh?
Another MP said we need to protect green spaces in cities, parks, gardens, places where people can escape the urban madness.
Bit of nature in the concrete jungle, right? Now, for something we all produce waste. What's the story there?
They talked about recycling rates, landfill space, creating a circular economy.
So are we a nation of eco-warriors or rubbish chuckers?
One MP said we need to reduce waste in the first place, encouraging composting, reusable packaging products that last longer.
Reduce, reuse, recycle, the mantra of our times.
Another MP called for better recycling facilities, making it easier for people to recycle and reducing the amount of crap that ends up in landfills.
Out of sight, out of mind doesn't really work with rubbish, does it? Now, for a topic that always gets people going, immigration and asylum.
They talked about border control, the rights of asylum seekers, integrating immigrants into society.
So are we rolling out the welcome mat or building walls?
One MP wanted stricter border control, saying we need to keep the country safe and manage immigration.
Fortress Britain, eh?
Another MP argued for more compassion towards asylum seekers, saying everyone has the right to seek safety from persecution.
Give them shelter. Give them hope.
It's a tough one, isn't it? Balancing security with compassion.
Hmm.
Okay, let's talk about something that connects us all, language and communication.
So are we a nation of eloquent speakers or tongue-tied mumblers?
They discussed language education, preserving minority languages, the impact of technology on communication.
The internet has changed the way we talk, that's for sure.
One MP stressed the importance of learning languages, saying it broadens our horizons and opens up opportunities.
The more languages you speak, the more people you can talk to.
Right. Another MP said we need to protect minority languages, recognizing their cultural value and the importance of diversity.
Keep those languages alive. Now let's get philosophical and talk about ethics and morality.
They discussed a whole range of ethical issues, from healthcare to artificial intelligence to the environment.
So are we a nation of saints or sinners?
One MP called for a more ethical approach to business, stressing the importance of social responsibility and sustainability.
Doing good while doing business.
Another MP highlighted the ethical challenges of new technologies, saying we need rules to make sure they're used for good.
Technology can be a blessing and a curse, right? Okay, let's finish with something positive. Personal growth and development.
They discussed education skills, training the government's role in supporting lifelong learning.
So are we a nation of go-getters or are we happy to stagnate?
One MP stressed the importance of investing in education and skills training, saying it gives people the tools to succeed in a rapidly changing world.
Knowledge is power, as they say.
Another MP encouraged lifelong learning, saying we should never stop learning and growing.
Always be learning. Always be evolving. Okay, round 3, let's wrap up this UK Parliament deep dive. We've waded through the muck of pensions, social care, deep fakes, you name it.
A real bureaucratic buffet.
But before we call it a day, let's dig up some of the lighter moments. Gotta find some humor in this shit show, right?
You'd be surprised there are a few chuckles buried in those transcripts.
You're telling me these politicians crack a smile occasionally?
Remember that bit about the Christmas Carol sing-off? The PM got all defensive when someone compared his singing to the leader of the Liberal Democrats.
Oh yeah, that was gold. Pure comedy gold. It's like they're more concerned with hitting the high notes than tackling the actual problems.
A welcome break from the usual dry-as-dust policy talk. It's good to know they're human after all.
So what other signs of life did you spot in those transcripts?
Actually, there were some genuinely nice moments. Several MPs took the time to praise the Armed Forces Emergency Services, all those who keep things running over the holidays.
It's easy to forget about those folks while we're stuffing our faces with turkey and mince pies.
And let's not forget the MPs who shouted out the amazing work of charities and community groups. Those are the real heroes, slogging away to make things better.
It's a good reminder that even in the midst of all this political bollocks, there's still good in the world. People helping each other, trying to make a difference.
Couldn't put it better myself.
Now, before we sign off, let's revisit one of the big themes that kept cropping up the government's constant struggle to balance competing priorities.
It's like they're juggling live grenades while riding a unicycle on a tightrope. You've got the economy, social welfare, the environment, national security, the lot.
And don't forget those pesky human rights always getting in the way.
It's a tricky tightrope walk, no easy answers. Ultimately, it's down to the government to prioritize, make the tough calls, and allocate resources where they're needed most.
Yeah, but every decision is going to piss someone off.
That's democracy for you, messy, chaotic, often infuriating. But it's the best we've got.
Well, folks, that's a wrap. Our UK Parliament deep dive is officially over. We've dissected the debates, analyzed the arguments, and hopefully shed some light on the state of the nation.
A roller coaster of political drama, social anxieties, and the occasional moment of hilarity.
UK politics never disappoints, does it? Always entertaining, often frustrating, never predictable. So until next time, keep those brains ticking, those questions coming. And remember, even in the midst of all this political madness, there's always something to learn, something to laugh about, and something to give you hope.
Couldn't agree more. Don't forget to check the show notes for links to the full transcript and other resources. We've also included a list of organizations tackling the issues we discussed in case you're feeling inspired to get involved.
And if all this political talk has left you needing a stiff drink, well, you're not alone. Cheers to that.
Cheers indeed.
That's all, folks. Thanks for listening and have a good one.